Welcome, everybody, to the Retail Corner podcast. Today, we have with you guys the co founders of SparkPlug. With me, I have Jacob Levin and Andrew Duffy. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Doing great, yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us. So, I'll give the floor, whoever wants to start, but can you tell us a little bit more about, what is SparkPlug, right? What service do you guys offer, what exactly it is, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how you guys got started, the story behind it. I know you guys are Harvard graduates, so that in itself is a very big accomplishment. So congratulations to both of you guys for that. But yeah, if one of you can tell me a little bit more, what is SparkPlug for our audience so that they know and they have a better understanding?
I can dive in on that. SparkPlug is a platform that allows retailers, restaurants, and the vendors that sell products into those retailers and restaurants to incentivize point of sale employees, frontline workers like servers or retail sales associates to sell more product by giving them cash rewards, commissions, contests, goals, whatever structure you want. You can use SparkPlug to incentivize those employees to sell more, succeed more, ultimately take home more pay by performing more effectively in the business.
Wow, that sounds phenomenal. And I know that's a very big challenge for a lot of retailers out there, right? I've been in corporate US for quite some time, and always the commission department, right? I think a lot of retail companies have actually evaporated the commission area because of how difficult it was to keep track of it, right, within their point of sale system, or even to compete when e-commerce really has been growing in the past 10 years. How do I give those sales to the e-commerce department versus my brick and mortar employees? So how are you guys, what makes your technology different that is able to leverage or close that gap?
Yeah, I think the most important part of how we're kind of able to reduce that friction and make it easy from an administrative standpoint, because you're exactly right. We never have to convince anyone that it's impactful to motivate your frontline sellers to be aligned with the growth of the business and to sell more product. It really comes down to the challenge and the kind of cost and time of managing a program. So SparkPlug integrates with the point of sale system at these stores. We integrate with almost 30 point of sale systems. Every time an employee makes a sale, they're typically logging in with their kind of unique ID and cashing a customer out, or they're at the counter and bringing someone up. And the point of sales do a pretty great job of giving each employee attribution for those sales. So SparkPlug really puts that data to work in a really use case specific way, powering all sorts of these gamified contests and commissions, and making it really accessible to the employees. That visibility really can't be overstated. You kind of think about the types of questions a manager gets all day when they're kind of running one of these programs themselves, and it's like, what place am I in? How much have I sold? Who's winning? And SparkPlug really makes that so easy by democratizing that visibility and giving employees kind of real-time stats on what they can do to improve and ultimately how they can earn more at the end of the day.
And I think also, as I'm thinking about it and talking to you guys, I'm very excited about it because I think, and I'm sure you already have thought of this, but you can also leverage this information for the merchandise department, right? For your buyers and your allocators to see, hey, great, you're incentivizing the employees, but at the same time, what products are really moving, right? Versus what we expect versus what's actually happening. And for those departments to actually take better action, right? In repurchasing and replenishment, the right merchandise. Because I think it can definitely be leveraged for that. I don't know if you agree or if I'm going a little bananas.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's something we see really often. Businesses who need to move some extra product, they're overstocked. I mean, how many businesses aren't overstocked with some products these days? And it's real attractive to just put something on a 40% discount and just move it and get it at the door. But you ultimately are just training customers to be less loyal and to be so price sensitive and hold out for that next discount. Whereas with incentives as a tool to drive sell-through, you can kind of maintain the value of the brand and the product while also kind of investing in the sell-through and moving the product and kind of freeing up the inventory bandwidth.
Absolutely. And I think as you guys were developing these, right, I'll take it back a little bit before we go further into it. How did this come about, right? What made you guys come together and say, hey, this is what we want to do? Was it an accident, or was it pre-planned, or maybe another project that grew into this?
I would call it a series of happy accidents that in retrospect sounds like a plan when you string it together in the right order. Jake and I became very close friends as undergrads at Harvard. We were both studying behavioral science in different ways. Him more at the kind of population scale with governments, me more in the economics world of behavioral ec. So we were both always fascinated by how do you create the right incentives and the right systems to get people to execute on behaviors that are ultimately good for them and good for everybody. We both went into the finance world, which was, as many experiences in the finance world, a little bit of a dark chapter, but we both got even deeper into that interest set there. I was working at a hedge fund doing a lot of labor economics research. Jake was working in private equity, focused on consumer products. So we're learning more and more about the fact that as we've really addressed with SparkPlug, there's this big gap in the ability to drive more sales in physical environments via the employee. It's one of the most effective channels, but it's one of the least scalable today, unless you're using a platform like SparkPlug. And we ultimately created the kind of nuts and bolts and features of SparkPlug that are the most impactful today because of our experience starting our own CPG company. So after we left our roles in finance, we started a tea company. And that tea company was a luxury product at a luxury price point. And we sold it in grocery like Sprouts. We sold it in, spas, salons, these very experiential high touch environments. And in trying to manage our business across all of those different environments, we saw two really, really huge gaps. One was the inability to get that employee excited at scale, which when we would go into the salon or the spa and say to the masseuse or the hairdresser or the technician, hey, recommend this tea that's in the gift shop. It's really great. You'll really like it. Try it out. Here you go. Here's a little bit more about it. We'd see sales absolutely skyrocket. But we didn't really have the time to go into every single salon and spa that we work with to make sure that those folks were excited about it. And then on the flip side, working in these bigger box like grocery environments, there was a total lack of visibility and coordination around what was actually working in the store. We would sell a big first order into a grocery environment, and then while we're waiting 30, 60, 90 days for them to send their payment, they're sending us bills for what we owe in promotions and chargebacks and all these different things.
Yeah,
that to
real
us
estate
felt like,
space. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It feels like we're just tossing money into a money pit. We don't know if that money's actually doing anything, and we don't have any data to back that up. So those two things became really the pillars of SparkPlug for us: the data visibility, the infrastructure plugging into the point of sale to give a brand visibility to what's happening, and then the incentives, getting employees excited about selling particular products by rewarding them for it and getting them aligned with it and making them feel like they have some skin in the game. So combining those two was ultimately, I think, the kind of light bulb moment for us that turned SparkPlug into a reality.
And I am sure a lot of psychology, right, went behind this, right? Because a lot of times I feel, and having been in management for many years, it's not enough. The money is not enough always to incentivize somebody, right? It has to be bigger than the money. It has to give that employee, that individual, a larger purpose into selling that product and into being proud of that brand that they're representing, right? So how do you guys leverage all the knowledge that you acquired, obviously, in college and those psychology aspects and kind of plug them into SparkPlug,
I think there are a couple of really key ideas that we took away from our experience in the behavioral science world that deployed directly into SparkPlug. And candidly, like most impactful ideas, they're relatively simple. The really key sort of structural ideas are quite basic. And those are oriented around things like, if you want people to participate in something, particularly if they're busy people, the friction to participate has to be near zero. So it was a big design principle for us when we first started SparkPlug and to today that the experience of the employee has to be absolutely frictionless and so enjoyable and so intuitive for them. Otherwise, even if you're offering them money, it's not going to be worth their time or their effort, because money today is second only to attention in terms of value. So their attention is already very valuable. They're going to be putting it in lots of different places. You got to command that. The second piece of the puzzle is about how you reward people, and how do you reward people to make sure that those behaviors will be as durable as possible. So some of our understanding around intermittent reward systems, essentially the same philosophy that goes into the construction of a slot machine goes into the construction of an incentive campaign, where you want to reward them intermittently based on different structures of rewards, different ways of getting value, having them flex different muscles to actually sell to a particular goal, but changing up that goal and the way they get rewarded for it consistently maintains their attention, gets them excited. And then the last piece, which I think is a really critical one, is around reducing fatigue for the customer as they enter the store. So leveraging and training the employees to make customers more satisfied with the decisions that they make, rather than giving them more decisions to make. So that's something that, in incorporating things like training into the platform and in making these really targeted campaigns, we've given these employees the ability to be kind of a better support to making that a really enjoyable experience for the customer. So there's lots more to it, but those are some of the ones that really, started us off on the journey.
Yeah, some of the key elements. No, that sounds phenomenal. And I think one of the things I want to ask you guys, and maybe it's not necessarily, SparkPlug, but I think it's a problem that's happening today. There's shortage in labor, right? Nobody wants to work. No, after pandemic, it's very difficult to get people in there. And even when you do, it's very difficult to get them engaged and give that superb customer experience, right? So as we know what do you guys recommend, right, as in order to tackle these issues? Because we have a lot of entrepreneurs, we have a lot of executives that work for retail companies, right? Different sizes, mid-size, enterprise size, whatever the case might be. But from what you guys have seen and how you have helped your clients, what do you see as one of the best angles in order to try to tackle this challenge? Because I think right now it's the biggest problem from a brick and mortar perspective that most retailers are facing.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, if you employ frontline service workers, ultimately you are competing with the gig economy, with DoorDash, with Uber, with Lyft. These sorts of employees have other opportunities. And if you're paying them $15 an hour, it looks pretty attractive to some of those other opportunities where they're going to have control over their schedule. They're going to feel like real owners in their destiny. They're going to be able to just have that sort of flexibility and that sort of agency that so many people today in the post-COVID world are really attracted to and really yearning for. So in order to compete with those sorts of gig platforms, finding ways to motivate workers by, of course, incentives, we think are one of the most powerful ways to do that. Everyone is reactive to the incentives, from the CEO to, the freshest, most, junior entry level person at the restaurant, perhaps. So making sure that the incentives are aligned and that those employees really have visibility into what their incentives are, and making sure that their incentives aren't capped at just trading hours for $15, but instead giving them the understanding of how their work every single day, interfacing with customers, really is driving revenue for the business, growth for the company. And if they succeed in that, if they excel, then they can earn more money as a result. And the impact that can have on employees, and the dignity that they feel in the work that they're doing, and the loyalty that they feel for their business is really profound.
Absolutely. No, I think you hit the nail on the dot, right? Because absolutely, right now there's so many options where people can make as much money as they want based on how much they want to work, right? And I think exactly what you said, if you incentivize them and give them the opportunity to make more money, right? And to not really cap that because you have those incentives in there. So it's really up to them how much of a specific product or a specific campaign they want to engage and turn around that customer into an actual purchase. I think that's the game changer, right? And going into the future of the retail experience, right? What is your perspective on how things are going to shape up and continue to change in the retail world?
I think that retail is going to continue to bifurcate into two different styles of physical commerce. There's the efficiency style, which is your, Amazon grab and go store, get in, get out. You don't want to have to, put in any effort or experience any friction. And then the other side, which is what we're really the most fascinated by, and where we think the most innovation is going to be happening, is the experiential world. Is saying, hey, there's something that people are missing in their commercial experiences, and there's something that e-com can't really provide, and technology has not yet been able to fill the gap in providing, which is that physical in-store experience, the excitement of, picking up a product for the first time, the confidence that you get by making sure that it fits or that it aligns with your expectations, or that a highly experienced in-store employee has been able to recommend it to you based on your use case. That experiential world is where we're going to see the most change, and is where we're already seeing some change post-pandemic, because those places have started to become less what they were previously, which is, warehouses basically at the end of a supply chain. And instead, distribution, a lot of it's happening online. It's buy online, pick up in store. It's getting delivered straight to your house once you pick it in a showroom. And these experiential environments are becoming the sort of new hub for acquiring customers and getting them, locked into your ecosystem. So that fundamental divide, I think, will define a lot of the new technologies and the new employment structures that we're going to see. Because that experiential world needs great employees who are engaged, motivated, people first. They have to be well compensated for that as well.
Yeah, no, and they're the pivotal part of the experience, right? It doesn't matter. I was just in Florence, right, and they have this Gucci garden store, and it's like a little Gucci museum, Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it doesn't matter how many purses of the history of Gucci were there, how many projectors and everything. When you went down into the gift shop area, right, it's really that employee, that face to face, that makes you feel like a VIP, that makes the difference of you handing out your wallet and spending some money, or just saying, "Great, I took some pictures and I'm leaving." So absolutely. And so from a SparkPlug perspective, right, if guys that are listening to us out there and they're thinking, hey, this might be a great product for my team, right, this might be a great way to start picking up sales, what's usually the turnaround time frame in order for you guys to implement? And is the cost very big? Should a retailer say, oh, if I'm not budgeting at least X, I shouldn't really be looking at this? Or is this a tool that's for really everybody?
We really do think of this as a tool for everybody, and I think that that's something that we're so focused on. And of course, the point of sale integration really does make that as turnkey as it possibly gets. Our real value proposition, like I mentioned, is we don't have to convince business leaders how powerful it is to motivate their employees. What we do have to convince them is that SparkPlug is the easiest way that they can possibly do that, because most, we find, are not implementing an incentive program because it is just too time consuming, the idea of rolling something out. So the speed to go live, we've focused on, almost completely reducing that friction with the integrations and getting it to about 90% of employee uptake within 2 weeks. And we've done that by having, reaching them where they are, working with businesses to understand their culture, their communication. Most often, these employees, are not going to want to download an app or create an account or remember a password or have to deal with logging in every time they want to just update their stats. And they're certainly not going to be taking a picture of the receipt every time they make a sale to mail it into somebody. So by tracking that automatically, texting out to those employees their standings, their earnings, letting them know when they have a prize to redeem, and then Venmoing it right to them once they've earned the prize, it is really how we get that kind of go live date down to days rather than weeks or months, which is really unique for software in the kind of retail and hospitality space. And from a pricing standpoint, SparkPlug is intentionally within reach for small, medium-sized businesses who want to introduce a program like this. On average, we land at around $100 per location per month, subscription fees for SparkPlug to implement. That includes, then paying for their incentives to their employees. But the incentive model and the incentive approach can really just differentiate so much depending on the business, their margin, their team. Some teams are real competitive, and just putting $100 to the top seller or the individual with the highest order average at the end of the month is going to drive serious results. And some are more collaborative, where they want to work as a team, or maybe you do a manager incentive. So we focused really heavily on the customizability of the tool to really meet our customers where they are and how they want to motivate their teams in a way that's equitable, but also, really, really revenue generating at the end of the day.
And I'm assuming
one of the most powerful.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to mention, one of the most powerful pieces of that budget structure is that we can also incorporate the vendors that are on the other side of the equation. So if a retailer or a restaurant doesn't have the budget to, say, sponsor their own incentive for their employees, maybe that's $100 to the employee who sells the most appetizers this month, they can actually bring their vendor into it, whoever sells them the chicken wings for that appetizer, and say, hey, do you want to sponsor this incentive? And we have a full built out infrastructure for them to be able to have their vendors of, CPG products, apparel, shoes, food, anything that vendor is creating and selling in wholesale to the retailer, they can sponsor an incentive for. And SparkPlug makes that absolutely incredibly easy. So you can, as a retailer or restaurant, take advantage of the fact that you could be running an incentive program totally for free and be paying your employees effectively $1, $2, $5 an hour more without actually having to put any money on the table, which is one of the most powerful aspects of the platform, I think. Sorry to interrupt.
Wow, that sounds phenomenal. That sounds really, really amazing. Well, one thing I was going to ask was, I'm assuming when a retailer says, "Great, I want to, engage on this service," you guys, part of the implementation service is you kind of sit down with them, analyze their business model, if they're fast fashion, if they're food, whatever the case might be, and recommend a couple of, hey, based on our history and our previous clients, these are the best type of campaigns, or these are the best type of incentivization programs that we recommend to you? Or is it really, here you go, and it's open bar and you select however you want?
We're definitely pretty high touch with our customers and working with them to dial in a strategy that works. I often equate incentive marketing, the kind of category and lever that we're pioneering with SparkPlug, to email marketing. And 20 years ago, email marketing looked very different. There was only so much personalization you could do when it came to the copy and the creative. And it was kind of one size fits all to a list of 20,000 buyers. You're sending them the same email. Today, with the tools that exist, you can get so fine-tuned with the timing of the emails, the creative, the messaging, really this color of the buttons, because you've A/B tested that some customers are more responsive to one sort of version of the call to action versus another. And so we've taken that same approach to incentive marketing with SparkPlug, and giving our customers real fine control over the ways that they're motivating their employees, because it's not just a dollar commission, because at the end, then it just becomes kind of a race to the bottom, similar to how discounts can become just $1 off versus $2 off. And we don't want incentives ever to become a dollar commission versus a $2 commission. So with the tool, being able to provide that flexibility and the configurability to mess with the timing of the incentive campaign, again, manager-based, individual-based, whether it's contest, competitive, really does make it as much an art as it is a science. And coupling our tools with the real undeniable data that comes from the point of sale and the sales really gives our customers a fine controls and the ability to A/B test and iterate and find what's going to work for them. And we're definitely involved in that.
Nice. And one last question I like to ask this of everybody, and I'll let you each go. If you had one piece of advice for all the entrepreneurs out there, for all the retail executives that listen to us, what would be the one piece of advice that you would recommend?
Wow, that is a great question. I'd say when it comes to, I'll focus on entrepreneurs. I think that's where maybe I can provide a little bit more value. I'd say don't be too worried about problems that you'd be lucky to have. It's a good piece of advice that someone gave me once, which is, I think, relevant, honestly, to all different, walks of business. For an entrepreneur, that's often thinking way past where you're at in the business and saying, okay, if we structure this way, then once we have 100 times as many customers, isn't this going to be like a little bit, difficult? Is that going to be a little bit onerous? Like, yeah, maybe, but let's deal with that problem when we have 100 times as many customers. And, we're doing something right if we're getting to that phase. And I think somewhere that has really popped up in my mind as it pertains to retailers is, sometimes we'll get retailers saying to us, oh, well, if SparkPlug really motivates my employees and gets them super jazzed up and they're trying to sell everything, aren't the customers going to think that they're too salesy or like too pushy? And that strikes me as a problem you'd be lucky to have. I'd rather have my employees working too hard to sell the product and say to them, hey, let's tone it down a little bit, or let's work on some sales strategies and some sales techniques, as opposed to my employees are demonstrating apathy and disengagement and I don't know how to motivate them. That's a much more difficult problem to deal with. So in general, I think that's a good piece of advice for planning, really any initiative.
Yeah, no, I like it. You're absolutely right. A lot of times, entrepreneurs particularly, right? They try to worry too much about tomorrow, and it's like, hey, conquer today, and then tomorrow you can conquer tomorrow. The sun will always come out tomorrow, so deal with the problem as you go. I really like it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
For me, I would say also some advice that I've gotten from a mentor is to be smarter than your last meeting. And I think that's something I often struggle with. It's real easy to go into a meeting and get great feedback from a customer or an investor or a potential partner and want to leave that meeting with a whole new strategy and a whole new plan. And finding the recurring trends from your many meetings a day and isolating those and deciding what you're going to commit to and what you're going to say no to is really one of the most important muscles to flex, I think, because ultimately the essence of good strategy is saying no to a lot of things and saying yes to the few things that you feel really, really confident about. So remembering that and kind of trying to take a less reactive and more proactive posture, I think is kind of good advice that would serve any entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think being able and learning to say no, it's fundamental, right? Because a lot of times you feel that pressure and you're trying to grow your business and you're trying to develop that you want to say yes to every opportunity and you end up shooting yourself in the foot, you know? So yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Well, Jacob, Andrew, thank you so much for being with us. Everybody listening out there, SparkPlug sounds phenomenal. If I had my own retail company, I would definitely use it. So I recommend you guys reaching out to them. We'll have the contact information right here for you guys. And worst case scenario, it doesn't work, but give it a shot. Give it a shot to incentivize your employees. I think it's the biggest challenge in retail today that is being faced, and nobody's really doing anything about it. And emails and phone calls have been done for more than 15 years, and there's really no good result coming from that. So my recommendation is give this an opportunity. I think you'll get a lot of benefit out of it. But guys, thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having us. Great conversation.
If you would like to be featured on our podcast, please email us at podcast@retailcorner.live or visit our website, retailcorner.live. Looking forward to having you as our guest on our podcast, and thank you so much for listening.